Good to have you here, Tommy.
It's good to be here.
Last night at the Danish Parliament at the Sappho Award event,
Yep.
you spoke about media and fake news, mainstream media. How's your impression of the Danish media?
as deceitful as the British. So last night we went to, what's their name?
Deadline.
Deadline. We went to Deadline. And they had an opportunity to ask me any questions they wanted to. But rather than they asked me questions, I've watched back the video they played on myself, but then they sat yourself down and they asked you questions that you couldn't possibly answer to do with me, which makes no sense. I was there. You could have asked me, you could have spoke to me, they could have questioned me about anything at all. But rather than question me, they tried to throw a gotcha moment at yourself, which was, and again, I've got what I videoed, which I'll be sharing. After he sat down and he asked you the question to do with me knocking on someone's door, afterwards I video him and say, do you know why I knocked on his door? And he says, yeah. And he says that his producers have watched the video. Now, people were sent to my family's home where my children are, Antifa. They made a video threatening to murder my children. Yeah. Now, the man that sent them to my house was the man whose door I went and knocked on. I went on my own, totally on my own. So the context of why I went to his house, they were aware of, but they didn't say that context. They should have showed the video, which I've got, which I guess you can edit into this. They should have showed the video of the man threatening to kill my kids and said, okay, so this man threatened to kill Tommy's kids. So Tommy went and knocked at the man that sent him's front door. And I knocked at his door completely on my own. I didn't threaten violence. I knocked and said I wanted him to explain how you think it's acceptable to send Antifa extremists to and when they sent them to my family's home, they even say on the video footage, they live streamed it, and they say they know I'm not in the country. So they knew I wasn't in the country, they knew my wife and 3 children were home alone, and they went there intentionally to intimidate them. So I went and knocked on the man's door, and on that show last night, he made the big deal about me knocking on his door, not about Antifa threatening to kill my children. So from my experience there, it's exactly the same as the BBC. Rather than let the Danish audience know the context, which they know the context, that's what gets to me. You know why I knocked on his door, because I've got you on camera telling me. He didn't realise I'm videoing him. He went white, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He went white because he didn't realise I'm videoing him. He admits, yeah, we know why you went to his house. Okay, so you know why I went to his house. You've seen the videos. You told me. He tells me on camera that they've seen the videos. But then he doesn't relay any of that to the Danish audience. He just makes it look like I'm just running around knocking on journalists' doors for no reasons. So, yeah, I think it's crazy that I give a speech showing the manipulation of... I give a speech for an hour in Danish Parliament about the manipulation, and then we go straight to see the mainstream media, and they do exactly the same. Which essentially plays exactly into... The only problem is, if I had my social media presence now, I'd put together a little video on that, on Deadline, and it would go viral, because people would see what they've done. But yeah, other than that, that's the only media I've met. I think I'm going to meet quite a few more this morning.
Yeah, you will.
We'll see. In the end, in the UK, as I said to you yesterday, I got to a point in, they only have one agenda. The agenda of having us on Deadline was not to hear about free speech. It wasn't. The only reason we're on there is for him to throw that moment at you, to try and make you, that's what their intention was, to try and bring you down for inviting me, to try and get to me through trying to embarrass you. I watched it back last night and I don't actually think he did succeed in that anyway. So, yeah. Media, eh?
Yeah, media. But we're about to speak about free speech, so...
Yes, we'll move to another subject. I mean, some people see regular imprisonments and convictions as part of political persecution by the English state, and others see it as just fair punishments in line with normal precedents of the English judicial system. Why would you argue that the English state persecution of you has been predominantly politically motivated?
So, you've heard I was done for mortgage fraud. Yes. Yeah, you've heard that, yeah? So people understand the mortgage fraud. I was arrested after 6 months of my activism, in the first 6 months, my house was raided 3 times, okay? 2 of the cases completely dropped. The third case, I was held on charges for 4 years. I had my assets frozen and my businesses closed down. I was allowed to live on £250 a month. They used legislation that was passed to go after terrorists to go after me. Now, the mortgage fraud case, which you'll all have heard a lot about, I lent my brother-in-law a deposit so he could buy a house. At the time, I had 2 successful companies. I had acquired 7 properties of my own. Yeah? I was 25 years old, very successful at the time. Yeah? The 7 mortgages I had, because between me and my wife, there were 7 mortgages, all of them 100% legit. Yeah? No lies or no forms. My brother-in-law, in the UK, we had a thing called self-certification mortgages. I don't know if you have them here, where if you put down enough of a deposit, you can just tell them how much you earn a year. So my brother-in-law said he earned £20,000 a year, whereas he really only earned £12,000 a year. So he got a mortgage. He bought a house. He done the house up. He lived in it for a year and then he sold it. 6 years later, the police come and arrested him. And then because I gave him the £20,000, yeah, and because he was an apprentice for my plumbing company, so because I gave him the £20,000 and he bought a house, they then say that that is mortgage fraud. Even though the mortgage company were paid back 100% of their money. No one lost a single penny. No one made a complaint. The police, it's like, it was Al Pacino, it's like they went through every single detail. They even got court orders to look at my mum's bank accounts, my dad's bank accounts. They arrested me on tax evasion. I got not guilty in 10 minutes when it went to court, and I'd been on this charge for 2 years. I got found not guilty instantly. The next case was, and then when I got found not guilty in court, they then put charges against my wife. Now, no one knows what my wife looks like. My wife having to walk into a courtroom in the UK would be the end of her freedom. Because although she'd get a not guilty in that case, because it was a total facade of a case, she would be exposed to the mainstream media, to everybody. You've seen the hassle I get walking around the streets in my country. My wife can walk around with my children on their own without any hassle because she's not in the limelight. This would have changed all of that. Yeah. I was then offered a deal to plead guilty to a mortgage fraud charge because I would never got found guilty either. I didn't fill out a mortgage form. It's my brother-in-law's mortgage. I was given the opportunity to plead guilty and they would drop the case against my wife. And that's what I did. So that's the mortgage fraud case. Peter Mandelson, Lord Peter Mandelson, he'd done exactly the same. Okay. Google the case. Yeah. He done far worse. Yeah? He lied on multiple forms himself.
Did he go to prison?
No, he got a lordship. he's in the House of Lords. So the reality is, the law, I showed a video in my speech yesterday of people outside of a courtroom just 2 weeks ago. I could show multiple videos like that. The law has been selectively used and used to target me. And I don't think anyone can deny it, anyone who goes through any of my cases. So you're right, and people are right to say that I'm not a Sunday school kid. I thought that was a great answer. I think you said that on the show. He's not a Sunday school kid. Which
No, you aren't.
No, I'm not, and I don't claim to be. I don't claim to be sitting here polishing my halo. And as every man in life, you learn from making mistakes. The reality is, the town I'm from is the most deprived and roughest town in Britain. Okay, it's a real town with real problems. I've not been brought up in a environment that's perfect. So, and if it wasn't for my upbringing, I would never have been the man that started the English Defence League. I would never, because the first punch I got in the nose, I'd have run away. So the first threats to kill me I'd have been in hiding. So, yeah, but at the same time, I'm not the man the media paint me out to be. I'm certainly not. And I saw them also having a go at you yesterday about an incident in Portugal. Now, I travel everywhere, and anyone can watch my videos. You'll see, if people come up to me and debate me, I debate them. I don't care what even with their words, so long as it's not threatening of violence, and I'm being debated, I will debate anyone. I've been surrounded by groups of Muslims. I don't get physical, I don't get violent, I don't get aggressive. There's only certain times, and any video will show that's online when they say you're violent. If someone comes up to me when I'm walking down the street with my wife and threatens physical violence against me multiple times, I'm in a position where I will defend myself. And I'm not, and to be honest, I'm not going to apologise for being a man. And that's it. I know we're in a society where men aren't supposed to be men, and men are supposed to be weak, and men are supposed to be cowards. But I will defend myself in any situation, and that's. On the contrary, there's no videos of me in groups of people being aggressive or anything like that. It's always been me on my own, being abused or being confronted, and reacting to it if I have to. And I'm best placed in a position more than anyone to know when I need to react and when I don't need to react. There's a newspaper article, if you Google this, you met my wife yesterday. If you Google this, on Valentine's Day, do you celebrate Valentine's Day in here?
Yeah, to some extent.
So I went out with my wife on Valentine's Day, and this is in a newspaper, and a man confronted me, and he was being abusive and threatening to me. And I turned and tried to walk away, and I was smashed over the back of the head. I ended up unconscious and in hospital. Since that day, I will never turn my head on anyone that threatens me. So if someone threatens me, even if the video he showed you, if you watch my eye line, from the minute he threatened me, I'm not taking my eyes off him. Because I'm not about, I said I've been in many situations where I've been hospitalised, I've been beaten. I'm fed up of being a punch bag. I'm fed up of it. So if someone threatens me, I'll do what I need to do to defend myself. But I think it was so unfair the way they put that question to you and that video to you, but rather than put it to me. Ask me why ask me why that happened. Ask me why I said that. Ask me why I done that. It was a very, I thought, deceptive tactic that he used, rather than, because he had the opportunity. I was there sitting there. But yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask you a few questions about free speech.
Yep.
But how do you see the conditions for free speech developing in Europe today?
I just read about a member of government in Florida. I'll read you it here. I don't know if you've read this. This is what needs to happen, yeah? The American Republicans have to challenge what's currently happening. So, Florida GOP leader will introduce bill to fight social media censorship. So Florida State Senator and leader Joe Cruz will announce a bill next week that will allow Florida's people to sue social media companies that censor their political speech. It will restrict the ability of social media companies to use hate speech policies as a legal defence for censorship. So they're introducing, this is what needs to happen. And I've said many times, we can't actually challenge this, yeah? It will be members of the American Republican Party that need to challenge it. If they don't challenge it, because whatever happens in Europe then makes its way to America. I already see the calling of hate speech laws and the need to silence people, which will affect their free speech laws over there. It's already there. It's already growing. And if they have their constitution, which gives them free speech, but that won't really mean anything when big tech start taking away their free speech. So if big tech Silicon Valley have the opportunity, Paul Joseph Watson's been deleted from Facebook. His main audience and target audience was America. He talks about all the American politics. Well, he's gone. So that's one massive platform of discussing American issues that will be pro-Republican, that will be against the Democrats. If the Republican Party don't address it, and it's down to them to address it. It's down to Donald Trump's White House to really get to grips with this. If they don't, Donald Trump will win the 2020 election, but they'll never win another election again. They will never win another election again, because everyone who pushes the truth on their side will be gone. They're disappearing left, right, and centre. People are being deleted and purged from all these big tech companies, and eventually, the only message that people will hear is that of the globalists, is that of the open borders, is that of. And then the scary thing for me is a lot of people remember my videos or know my videos because they've watched them in the recent years. That's good now, because I walk down the street and people know and they've watched my videos. In 5 years' time, okay, the new people coming through, the new generations, the only information you can get on Tommy Robinson when you Google my name is negative. The only videos you can find on YouTube are against me. So in the next 5-10 years, I'll carry on my activism, but the new generation coming through will not hear the truth about me. They will not hear my side of the story. They will not hear my argument. They will turn an entire the next generation of people will be told how to think and what to think about who. About me, about you, and about you. Everyone. That is the really scary thing. I still think people are listening, or people still know what I'm about, and that must frustrate them because they've been lying to them for so long, and people have seen through it because I had the ability to use my own platforms, and now I'm gone. And yeah, it's dangerous for everyone. It's dangerous for people who care for freedom, because allowing these big tech companies to control who can and can't speak without any qualification to do so, without any trial, without any justice, without any jury. Yeah. And
without the users knowing the guidelines.
What guidelines? Yeah, it's like, what guidelines? Like, we have laws.
It's arbitrary.
We have laws that prevent hate speech. Every country does, yeah, in Europe. We don't need your little guidelines on hate speech. No one needs it. If someone breaks the law on your platform, they can be prosecuted by the police. That's the way our society works. We have laws that have been introduced by elected officials who have decided those laws, who have changed those laws. Not for you, some big tech Silicon Valley company, to come in and you are the law. You're now the law on free speech. You're now the law on what can and can't be said. And but again, it's far out of our hands. I'd say the Danish government, on this issue of you being removed from social media yesterday, of Lars being removed, of basically your whole board of a free speech society being deleted, not for promoting me, not for promoting any of my views, not even talking about my views, but promoting free speech, then it's like no one could watch my speech yesterday and say there's any hate speech in it. So why have you all been deleted? And your government should be summoning Facebook in the similar way that I showed you yesterday. My government summons in YouTube. Your government should be summoning Facebook, saying, answer this question. How are you deleting members of our society, of our people, for their view, for not even their view, for free speech? That's what needs to happen. Your politicians need to, but you have a socialist government, so I don't expect
a social democrat.
Social democrat. Yeah. I don't expect they will. Hopefully they
no, we don't either. No.
And the maddest thing is, it's not that we're losing our freedoms, but so many people are celebrating us losing our freedoms. So many people are happy that we're getting deleted. They're happy that big tech are controlling what people can and can't hear. But they're only happy until it's going to happen to them.
Yeah. It was interesting, this initiative from America. But do you think we should or could rely on politicians to ensure free speech on social media, or should we rather rely on the free market to supply alternative platforms with more open policies?
I think that the future will be that alternative platforms will grow, because you can't, what's on Facebook now? East End, people talking about soaps and no political debate, you're not allowed to anymore. All of these things. So alternative sites, I guess they'll grow and grow and grow at the minute. I'm looking at TikTok because it's Chinese. I'm going to start using TikTok because it's Chinese. And isn't it crazy that the only site that we can use for free speech at the minute, I use Telegram, and it's Russian.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is, but it technically it does the same, doesn't it, as Facebook almost?
It's not as reaching, and it's difficult. So, but there will be other growing sites, whether it be BitChute, whether it be Free Speak, these new sites that so many people end up. I know Gab's growing and growing, but I think that they still need to be collared. That all the big tech companies that, okay, if you're a platform, because they get around certain issues, but so they can't be charged for what people put on their content, but then they are controlling what people are putting on their contents. They need to lose that right so that they can be found. I don't know. I think that the censorship issue for the first 5 years of my activism, or 7 years, it was Islam, head-on collision with Islam and the problems of Islam. I don't even find myself talking about Islam that much anymore.
Neither have we.
The main issue that's taken over is the establishment, the elite, censorship.
You're right.
Free speech.
Yes.
We now realise that, well, we can't even talk about it. And who's stopping us talking about it?
Yes.
It's the government.
Yeah,
it's big tech.
Same sentence in Denmark.
It's all changed. And the biggest issue now is free speech.
It is.
I was wondering, you know, freedom of speech is a democratic right, and people who believe in it will often claim that they will defend the rights of people to speak with whom they disagree. Has any NGOs or Amnesty International or organizations like Journalists Across Borders, have they ever criticized the treatment of you by the English authorities?
No, they celebrate. They all celebrate. There's been a couple of voices. Again, Majid Nawaz, I spoke about him yesterday.
Yeah.
He's a reformist. He's been very strong on these issues. And we disagree.
Yes, yeah.
We disagree politically.
Yeah.
But he's been very strong in speaking up. Yeah. The only person that comes to my mind that's actually spoke up on this issue. Other than that, they all celebrate it and all try and justify it. Which is a sad state of affairs, that all the journalists, it's again, you saw my presentation yesterday. What do we expect? What do we expect?
Is there a class aspect to the suppression of freedom of speech in Europe at the moment, do you think?
Or in Britain?
Oh,
or in Britain?
All of the journalists I would have spoke about yesterday will all be of a certain class. And all of them will view us. In the Panodrama documentary, you heard undercover footage of John Sweeney describing the working class as like
cannibals.
Cannibals,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So there is a massive issue where we have all of the journalists are from a similar background. They're all privately educated. They're all they do view the working class. I don't know if you have that issue in Denmark. I know America doesn't have this class issue, but we have a real class problem in the UK. If I spoke with a different accent, and I pronounced my T's instead of saying Luton, if I done certain things and went to a certain school, then I wouldn't be demonised and attacked the way I am. But many of them have contempt for me based on my background anyway.
Yeah, because last year...
We're from a working class. You heard, again, John Sweeney said my scumbag Irish background. In that, there was certain things that are telling in even that documentary. His complete view of working class was exposed. Yeah. And yeah, I completely feel that many of even the politicians, I think 90% of Labour's politicians, which are supposed to represent the working class, are privately educated. Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah, where's our representation? It's crazy. Then you get working class people at this last election of all voting for the Tory party, which is absolutely insane. But it's just for Boris Johnson. I never thought that in the UK that the populist party would be the Conservative party. But that's actually the way it's gone in the last 12 months. That's the way it's gone.
Interesting.
So what about talking a little bit about, and towards the end here, about projects for the future? How do you see?
So I see now, because of censorship. So to get around the censorship, in the UK, to make sure I reach an audience in the UK, we bought a red double-decker bus with a huge screen, and the idea with that is that when I make a documentary or a video, I'll bring it into a city centre with thousands of people, and we'll use social media against social media. So if I have a documentary nearly ready, I have 3 planned for the next year, and the documentaries have to, like the days of me making 7-minute YouTube videos are gone, because I need to make such a hard-hitting, such a thought-provoking, such a personal, such a upsetting stories, and they have to be so well made so that they do reach people regardless of any of the censorship issues. So that's what I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months. I have a documentary nearly finished now, and we've actually been in talks with 2 of the biggest streaming services in the world about the documentary, and it looks like we might have the possibility of censorship getting rid of us off social media and hopefully, possibly, getting our documentary shown on a streaming service which will be worldwide. So that's currently, I've got the documentary literally finished, but we've been holding off whilst we're in talks about a multi-part series. If that doesn't happen, then I will turn up in city centres. We will have to have a hashtag for the name of the documentary. Say, hashtag the rape of Britain. We will then get everyone who's there on the day to tweet at the start of it, tweet this, tweet that, to use the social media to get it to trend. We'll have to use our own people. You saw the Free Tommy sticker campaign?
Yeah.
So when I make my documentary, I'm going to ask people to go out with the hashtag, the Rape of Britain campaign, and literally blitz the UK and use certain tactics, because we have to. I just look at, right, they've done that, and it is disheartening when you're deleted, and then it's just picking itself up and thinking, right, what can we do now? And it's trying to get around what they've put in place to stop it. And I think that if it's such a powerful documentary, then it has to be, so that when people go to work in the office, they say, you've got to watch this documentary. You've got to watch what I watched last night. And that's the only way we'll be able to spread. That's the only way we'll be able to spread currently. So, and hopefully, say for example, if I produce a documentary, I'd hope that we've got enough friends in European countries and around the world now that I could premiere it in different places.
Yes.
Yes.
And then the interest will come from then, before it's released, I'll do a premiere in Denmark, I'll do a premiere in Holland, I hope Gert Wilders will do it. I'll do premieres in different places, which will build the momentum. It's the only option we have, so that's what I'm planning at the minute. Which I think will try to not get around the censorship, but it will still try and build a momentum for whatever we're producing, which will be content that will be exposing things that they don't want to talk about.
Very interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
This was the first, for me, I'm grateful you've invited me. I'm so grateful you gave me the award.
We're happy to have you.
I come out of jail in October, and since then, September. And since then, I've had downtime, family time, which I needed as well. I totally needed it. I feel fresh. I wanted to use my speech here to relaunch myself, to get back out and active again.
Well, we're looking forward to see what you have in pipeline.
Thank you.
So,
cool.
Thank you for coming.
No,
yes,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks for putting up with the backlash, yeah?
Yeah.
Enjoy it, because it's probably only just started. You're going to keep getting it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's true.